This week's project is a hollow vessel. You can see that there, finished product on the right. What I started with is the piece you see on the left. It's referred to as a crown piece, and you can tell that by all the branches that are coming off of this. This would have been near the top of a birch tree, and multiple branches going in different directions. Now this wood was wet. Very wet. Matter of fact, as I was turning it, it was spraying me with water a bit, and the surface had visible water on it while I was turning as well. So very, very wet. It did lead to some cracking, as you're going to see, but I think that was dealt with the best that I could. I'd also just like to take the time to say thank you for my subscribers. I have gotten up to 600 subscribers, so if you're one of those, thank you very much. And if you're not one of those, if you'd like to take the time to subscribe, I'd appreciate that as well. I apologize, this is not a great picture, but I think you can clearly see what this week's project is going to be. It's going to be a vase turned out of this crown piece. It's called a crown piece just because of the way it looks. It's near the top of a birch tree in this case, and it's got branches going in all directions. And I think even though it's birch, which isn't known for its grain pattern, I think the fact that it has all these branches will make for some interesting features inside. White birch doesn't have typically a lot of color, but this being a crown piece, it does have some things going on with it. And this is what I was looking for. So I've got a branch here, it's got a very tight pith, so I'm not concerned about that. But look at the beautiful feathering underneath of it. Again, because that branch moves back and forth, it compresses the grain, and you can see there the beautiful figuring underneath it. So I have one here, I have another branch here, and again I have that same figuring. This will come off, that's just bark. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller yet. I'm going to turn a tenon on this end so I can get it mounted, hold it more securely. Now that it's round, I'm up to 650 RPM, whereas I started at 200 when it was out of round, so I'm making good progress. We'll get a tenon on it and get shaping it. Good news, I survived the night in the kiln. Only a few small surface cracks. I put CA glue on those, that will stop them. And I'll be able to come back later. I still got some thickness here. I'll be able to come back later and probably get rid of most of those. So I'm not going to touch the inside of this because I want to leave the material to cut off the outside. I've got my center rest and I'll start hollowing. So I have my steady rest, as I mentioned, in place here, tailstock removed, and I'm just using my gouge, just working that rim a little bit, and also get started on the indent where I'm going to drill. Normally I just use a Forstner bit, but here I'm using a long boring drill, a regular head on this drill bit. The reason being my opening is too small and my Forstner bit is short, so normally I have to get the drill chuck itself into the vessel, but in this case the chuck was too large to fit through the opening, so therefore I had to go with a normal bit. Here I'm using my hollowing jig. I do not have the laser installed. The opening is large enough and the vessel's not that tall, so I am able to just feel it quite a ways with my fingers and also use my thickness gauge. So the laser wasn't necessary on this application. I've mentioned this before, but in this case I'm actually turning in reverse. I find it easier in reverse so that I can work the hollow vessel on the other side away from me rather than back towards me. It just gives me more room to work. And I can see better what I'm doing. Okay, I've been hollowing a bit with my hollowing rig. I do not have the laser on. I'm still fairly thick, but interestingly, I'm uniform. It's pretty uniform all the way down. Using my caliper gauges, I can tell that. Another reality is that it doesn't really matter. Beyond here, as far as I can reach, nobody will know the difference. If you can't stick your hand in and feel it, does it matter how thin it is? Smooth, yes. Sometimes if it gets too bad, you can see it. I can't. It looks smooth. I really can't see much anyways, but it looks fairly smooth. So at this point, it's all a matter of just pride. I don't want it to feel heavy. I want it to feel light. I want it to be a bit thinner for no other reason than to know that I can. But again, once I go beyond this point right here, no one's going to feel it anyways. I will continue a bit more. I'm going to put my laser on so I can see where I'm at, and we'll take some more out, and we're going to make this a bit thinner. I had already done the hollowing, as you saw, with my hollowing jig, and it was pretty good, but I did have right up near the rim here, I did have a bit of a ripple that I was chasing. So I was using here my gooseneck carbide tool, and because I'm not in very far, I don't need my hollowing jig, I can just use that. This is good for about 4 inches inside a hollow vessel, and that worked well just to get rid of that ridge that I was feeling right at the opening. As you can see here, now that it's done and ready to sand, that feathering did turn out quite nice. I sanded it again up to 600 grit before applying the finish. Now that it's all sanded down, I just wipe it down with a cloth. I've already blown it off with compressed air, but now I'm just wiping it with a cloth to get rid of any residual sawdust that may be on it before applying the finish. I should mention I did try a number of things: sawdust, CA glue, the tung oil, and the sawdust to make a paste. I did end up using some 5-minute epoxy that I mixed up and put sawdust in that, and then went back over those cracks and filled it with that. That was the final fix that I ended up doing. You'll see here later, they still are visible, but they are smooth. Here's a really good shot of that feathering that I mentioned earlier, and this is one of those pieces on the crown where the branch was. Here in this shot, you can see how plain birch is if it doesn't have a branch in it. The wood is very, very white, and the grain doesn't have a lot of pattern to it. Here you can see those cracks up close. They are filled. And also in this shot, you can see another angle where the cracks are filled. I should mention these pictures are a bit out of order now that I see them. There was a final sanding afterwards that removed the staining that you saw there as well. Okay, it's all sanded up, and it looks good. Sanded up to 600, nice and smooth. But again, I've got these cracks. It was wet, so it wasn't unexpected. I got a crack there, there, around this rim, a bunch around the base. They're not bad, and some of these are filled in with sawdust. They actually look fine. I debated on what to do. I mean, yes, I could do epoxy, I could do CA glue with sawdust, which I have done some of. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put tung oil on the whole thing, and then I'll sand it with the tung oil, which makes a paste. And then that paste will get down into those cracks, and that'll help fill it. And we'll take a look at it then and see what that looks like. If I have to do more, I'll do it then. But let's start with some tung oil. The birch is a very white wood, so the tung oil helps impart a bit of color to it. You can see that really brought the feathering out there, which is what I was looking for. So there. If you watch my channel regularly, you'll see that I often do this. I reverse mount it in my lathe with just a friction fit. So I turned a cone, in this case, that fit inside the vase, and then bring the tailstock up, and then I can just slowly work away at removing the tenon. I do have a cold jaws chuck that allows me to grab bigger objects, a rim of a bowl, for example, but this rim on this vase was way too thin. It's practically paper thin. There'd be no way I could grab it on that rim at all. Now it does look like it's a little out of balance here. I think that's just the camera. It's not as bad as what it looks. It actually turned out okay. Here's the finished product. Pretty pleased with the way it worked. That rim is thin enough that it is passing light, and the vase is pretty close to that as well. Here's a beautiful shot of the figuring on the side of it. Here you can see the light that I just mentioned in the rim, and also the repaired cracks. They are visible, but at the same time, they're the best I think that I could have done with them. So pretty pleased with the way the whole thing turned out. And thank you for watching.